Hi everybody, this is Rich Gibbons with SpeakInc, and we are here with funny man, Tom Cotter.
That would
Tom,
be me.
good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Rich.
We are in wine country for an energy customer, and Tom just slayed an audience. It was a customer event, and I was sitting in the audience, and I think that one of the things, there's a lot to love about Tom's program, but one of the things that you have to have a nose for in the corporate market is what is blue at the Comedy Store and what's blue here is very different.
You got to find that line, and obviously you're not going to drop any F-bombs, you don't want to do any of that, but it's such a slippery slope now for comics. And, we came out of the pandemic and we thought, thank God we can work again. Because we were doing Zoom shows, and I did tons of those virtual shows.
Which I can't even get my head around.
I did one that's so bad people get up and walked out of their houses. That's not good. But however, now that we're able to work again, I'm happy to be working. But now this whole, I don't know what you want to call it, PC, woke, whatever you want to call it, people get very triggered much more easily than they used to doing comedy. All the comics are talking about it. And so Seinfeld famously wrote an op-ed to the New York Times saying he will never work at a college again because his kids show up with a chip on their shoulder waiting for you to utter that one thing that's going to send them into a tizzy, and then they go online and they eviscerate you. Yep. And if Seinfeld's too edgy for you, then the rest of us are doomed.
Yeah, right.
But you try to find that balance, and generally, if you're doing innuendo or things like that, you're not hitting anyone over the head with it.
Right.
You can get away with it, but you never know, because you never know with that born-again Christian, devout Muslim, someone who might be offended by something you say. So it's a very slippery slope, and you just have to navigate that. And I've been doing this for 35 years, so you try to figure out where that line is, and you hope you don't step over it for anybody.
Yeah, well, so one of the event stakeholders was paying you some compliments while you were on the other side of the room, and talked about how Tom went up to the line, but didn't go over the line, and we were both talking about how the funniest stuff is near the line.
Yes.
So if you're like a million miles back and you're playing it safe, you're just not funny.
Yeah.
You've got to have a little bit of tension in your material.
So, everybody, can find something they're going to be triggered about, which is before, we used to worry about people who were really conservative, very religious people. Now we worry about these young kids that are, triggered by more things than they used to be. I used to work at colleges and you could say whatever you want. Now you work at a college and you have to be squeaky clean. The problem is that you can't just do an hour of self-deprecating humor. You just can't get up there and make fun of yourself for that. I can, because there's so much to work with me. But you can't, I'm a short, middle-aged guy. I don't make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. You can only do so much of that. And finally they're like, enough about you.
Right.
So
there's a fatigue to that.
Yeah, there is. And so what I try to do is show that I can take a punch by making fun of myself for the first 10 minutes. I lost to a dog act on national television. I'm short. I'm Irish, I'm this, that, and the other thing. I have all these faults. And then the audience says, okay, he can take a punch. Now he can start making fun of things. Because that's what comedy is. Comedy's lampooning, it's mocking, and people don't want to be mocked anymore. People don't want you to lampoon things now. So it's a very, very delicate balance of trying to find out where that line is and get right up to it, snuggle it, but you don't want to cross it.
Right.
And that's always the challenge.
Well, and something that my business partners and industry colleagues have seen is the perspective that some comedians have if they do 95% of their work in comedy clubs.
Yes.
Their sense of what is blue and then what is clean. No, clean's got to be like way down. So for corporate clean, you're not talking about a self-selected group where they go to the Comedy Store and they buy a ticket. Yeah. You're talking about corporate events where people from all over the country, all walks of life, all different backgrounds, they're thrust into a room and you're set up to entertain them. You have to really strike that happy medium between being a little edgy, a little racy, a little funny, but still being safe.
Yes. And that's the daunting challenge there.
It is. But, it really is.
I was on America's Got Talent, and that audience is little tiny kids all the way up to their great-grandparents, everyone in between, every race, creed, color, ethnic, economic strata. You got poor people, rich people, you got everybody, and you have to entertain all of them. And that's a very, very daunting task to hit everybody when you only have 2 minutes on the show. But that's what you learn to do. And as I said to you earlier, I had done a week at Busch Gardens where I do 4 shows a day. And they wanted that Disney clean, like you're working on a Disney cruise ship.
Right.
And so you have
Mickey
that.
Mouse cannot be offended.
You have that, and then the next week you might be at the Comedy Cellar in Manhattan in the West Village where they want edgy. They want you to be as edgy as you can
Make
be.
a Teamster blush.
And so now you have to, you have to try to, get in your head.
Yeah.
It's all C's. It's corporate, college, cruise ship, casino, comedy club. These you can be blue at. These you can't.
Right.
I used to be able to at colleges be a little edgier. Now you can't.
Yeah.
So you just have to adjust and know your audience and play to your audience.
And for those event stakeholders that they want something fun and upbeat and they want their attendees to laugh, but they don't want to take a chance.
Yes.
Right.
And tonight, I'm sorry to interrupt, but these are their customers. So
absolutely.
They want to make them so happy, and they don't want. So if you're a corporate buyer, you can get the Bee Gees tribute band, or you can get the comedian. Which one is going to get you in trouble?
Right.
They're going to go with the Bee Gees tribute band generally. So for us, it's a very slippery slope. But you try to lock in and hopefully do a decent job, and then word gets around that you can handle this kind of situation. And obviously, you're not dropping F-bombs, or you're not trying to be, nothing racist, sexist, but, you can get close to things, you just can't hit people over the head with it, because that's where they really, really get uncomfortable, and then you get bad reviews, and people get upset, and
then
no one wants that.
That's where the sort of the pros and the amateurs are separated, and I've been doing this for 32 years, you've been doing this for 35 years, is it takes a few reps at the plate to have a nose for reading the room and having that executive briefing beforehand. And one of the questions that Tom asked in one of the Zoom meetings that we had preparing for this event was, if I were a movie, how would you rate me? Like, how would you want me rated?
I always ask that question.
Yeah,
and
it's a great question.
99% of the time they say PG-13.
Yeah.
They don't say NR 17, which is, or R, or X, certainly never X.
Right.
And generally they don't say G or PG because they know that people want to have some fun.
Yeah.
So PG-13 seems to be right in the middle, and it's stuff that, everything I did tonight, I've done on television. And I've done it at prime time on America's Got Talent, but I've also done stuff on Leno and Conan, stuff you do late at night that is a little edgier, but still it's network television. So obviously it has to get past standards and practices. And so that's how you justify it to people who are hiring me. Say, look, I did it on TV. I think it's going to be all right. If AGT didn't have a problem with it at 8 o'clock p.m. on NBC primetime, then I don't think your audience is going to have an issue with it.
It's going to pass muster, So one of the things that Tom and I were talking about is he would, you do have your prepared material. It's that monologue. He knows where he's going with it. He's moving down the tracks. But there were a number of points, and you did your set was long. It was like 50, 55 minutes. I mean,
He said I went a little over an hour, so a little,
I mean, but that for comedy and keeping the energy up and keeping the laughs going, that's a long time. That's a lot of work.
It is a long time, especially when they've been drinking all day and doing these wine tastings as they were today and playing golf at 100 degrees temperature.
Right.
So I knew that it was, it was going to be work to get them to kind of come out of their shells and have fun, but they were pretty good from the get-go, and they were all right with that.
So one of the things that Tom did was sort of, you did have that takeoff role where you were doing, prepared material, but then pretty quickly after that, you engaged in some audience interaction, and
I always do, unless they tell me not to.
And that's right. You divined that in the prep.
Yes,
Zoom.
So, sometimes when you do a corporate, they say, we don't want you to talk to the audience. We just want you to do your material, and you're their employees, so you do what they want you to do. And if they say don't play with the crowd, don't do crowd work, you don't do crowd work.
Right.
But most of the time, they're like, okay with it. Sometimes they'll even say, this guy is the vice president from Topeka. You got to make fun of him, or they'll give you a whole dossier on what you can say.
Well, you got to
about
make
this
fun
guy.
of him, and he's a fun guy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That's the other thing is.
But this person over here is a no-fly zone. Like, don't talk
I've gotten
to
that
them.
a million times.
Right.
Yeah, they'll
Right.
leave that person alone. That
Right.
person does not want to be part of the show, and that's fine. I don't want them to be uncomfortable. My
Right.
job is not to make people uncomfortable. It's to make them laugh
Right.
and make them happy. So I never want to upset people. So knowledge is power. And when you tell me before a show, stay away from Ed from Kansas. He doesn't want to be messed with.
Right.
Ed's off limits.
Yeah.
I don't go to. But if you tell me that Janice from New Jersey loves to be messed with, then.
Right.
Janice will be a part of the show, unless I can read people, as all entertainers can, and you can tell by their facial expression, by their gesticulation, by their tone, when you ask them a question,
body
that
language,
they do not want to be a
right.
part of the show.
Right.
Immediately you bail.
Right.
You don't make it uncomfortable for anybody. You just say, oh, it's great talking.
Right.
Boom, I'm on to the next target.
Right.
And that way you move on with someone who's more gregarious or more wants to be part of the show.
Yeah.
But that's, you kind of feel them out.
Yeah.
And it can be a slippery slope. You don't know.
Yeah.
When you're playing with the crowd, you really don't know where it's going to go. As we said before, it's a dialogue.
Right.
So you're only 50% of that conversation.
Right.
The other person has to be a willing participant, or
Yep.
the straight man in this
Right.
scenario for my jokes. And generally, it works pretty well, but occasionally you got to pull the ripcord, bail, and move on to something else.
Well, and that it all keeps coming back to having a nose for it and being able to read the situation. And as an audience member, because I was sitting in the audience just like everybody else was. When you would do crowd work and you'd start interacting, it did kind of make you were bracing a little bit. But that's where I think the biggest laughs came from, because everybody was they were totally engaged, totally focused, and everybody was a little bit, I hope this works out okay.
Yeah.
And you had some of the funniest moments with sort of quick reactions to things that people said, and it was a phenomenal program. But I think the takeaway from me is, if you in the corporate trade association market, if you want to engage comedy, it is not the time to wing it and take chances.
No.
And having someone like you that has the reps, can read the audience, and understands what corporate clean is. Because again, we've worked with some comedians who are like, oh yeah, it's corporate, I'll tone it down. And they're going from like, what is it, R, whatever. They're going from here down to maybe a lower level of R, but they're not down into PG-13. And then you're dealing with a customer conference, you're bringing them to a beautiful property, you're spending a lot of money to honor and thank customers.
Yeah.
And then you have this program where people's noses are out of joint.
Yeah.
It's like a total backfire.
Yeah, and you don't want that, because obviously they're not going to hire you again, but also you've left them with like a bad taste in their mouth.
Well, you left them with a problem.
And next year you think they're going to hire a comedian? Hell
Right.
no. They already
They're
going to
hire the Bee Gees
They're
tribute
going to go
band.
with the tribute band, which, by the way,
right.
underrated. I like the Bee Gees tribute band. But yeah, so you want to make, like, you read the room. Like in any field you're in, you read the room.
Right.
You know what you're dealing with. You talk to the people beforehand. Knowledge is power. Get as much knowledge as you can about the situation you're going to be in, and then as soon as you get up there, if you've had some years in this, which I have, then usually it should go reasonably well, we hope, knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, if for those out on the interwebs, if you're looking for something that is an absolute scream hilarious, but you're not taking any big risky chances, that's your guy.
I'm the guy.
Thank you for
this was fun.
doing a great job, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.